So hi everyone and welcome back to day 4 of Write With Me, Planting a Queer Romance with me, Dalia. Today we continued crafting Nora and Ellie's love story in the quaint town of Whispering Pines, and hopefully Ellie will finally make an appearance. The goal for today is to wrap up the first chapter and to set up everything for writing the second one. And since this is the last day of the series, I'll try to have a bit more time for Q&A at the end. And before we dive in, a few housekeeping items. I'm almost sure that every one of you have already heard this, but I just want to remind you that stay muted when you're not speaking so that we minimize background noises. And if you want to speak up, raise your hand, or if you have questions and comments, just leave them in the chat. Now we'll keep an eye on them, and I'll address the questions during Q&A breaks or at the end of the session. And now that we're all set, let's jump into day 4. Let's go. Yeah. You're not seeing this, are you? I just noticed that I did not properly share my screen, I think. Or did you see?
We can see your screen, we see your Zoom decorum, and then we see your Sudowrite.
Oh, perfect. Because for some reason that did not get the, I mean, it usually has this little green border and it didn't get it. So I was confused for a moment, but it's working. Perfect. This screen sharing stuff is always so annoying. But now I have to, I'm a bit fumbling with the Zoom bar to put it somewhere where it's not annoying me. Let's go with you. Oh, no. Yeah, this should work. Anyway, I spent a bit time today to wrap up the rough draft of the first chapter so that we can do some wrap-up work today and to just get you updated. Nora arrived at the house and she looked through the different rooms, found the, what's it called? The piano, was reminded of her love for music. And then she decided that the garden needs some work because it's a bit of a jungle by now. And she settled that she will have to reach out to some people to start the transformation of the house. And that's the perfect point for her to look for Carpenter, our Ellie, but that will happen in the second chapter. I also shared with you all the guided write prompts that I used to finish the chapter. They're in the document called Preparations for Chapter 1. Now the last step that is left to do with the first chapter is generating our chapter glue that we talked about a lot in the previous sessions. And in general, there are several ways that you could do this. Now with the new outline, the easiest way would be simply clicking Update. And here choose the right chapter document. And if you click this, it will look weird for a moment and then will read the chapter and write a new summary so that it's changed to the stuff that actually happened in the story. Since sometimes stuff doesn't play out exactly the way I planned them, it's always helpful for me to give it an update in one way or another. At this, And this would be the version that Sudowrite basically gives us in this inbuilt feature. But you could also use a plugin for the same purpose. And so that you have a little comparison, I will show you two plugins that you could also be using. And I've also linked a document where you can get the different versions. And I just noticed that this has the same problem with copy pasting as before. So we would have to go this way to preserve our line breaks. So other possibilities to create the chapter glue would be using, oh, would be using, let's see, either the recap plugin or the chapter glue plugin. Both are by our mad scientist, John Creason. And they use different AIs, and different prompting, so the result is not the same. But we'll start with this one, and then later you can take a good look and compare the details to see which of those would be the best one for you. I copy this for keeping here. To use these plugins, you would have to go into the chapter and highlight the whole text and then just click on them. Yeah. Okay. I have this feeling this one's using A04 because it gets the same, not A04, or O mini, because it's starting to, oh, Jesus Christ. Let's stop this. This will probably just go on writing. So we just lost this one. Because sometimes the AI goes a little bit crazy with word vomit. I just try it once again with the chapter glue. Since looking at the structure and the stuff the summary gives me, I like this chapter glue plugin best. But if it won't stop, that's, of course, would be a problem. So fingers crossed it's working now. Ah, yes. Onward progression story systems. Okay, it also gave a little bit weird stuff here at the end.
It's your summary of the chapter.
Yeah, that's probably the next chapter continuation.
Because up there is talking about your character if you go higher on the chapter glue.
Yeah, but if you start reading from, I think, here it inspires claiming both guardian and sense of self and the private community, and then it starts to be beginning to be weird again. Choose thereafter.
You can copy all the way to when it starts getting weird. Just keep the good part.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. So we would just sense of self. Yeah, I would think garden sense of self would be a good endpoint for this one. And now since I know a few people are a bit more credit aware, let's take a look at what each of these chapter glues costed. The update outline function is actually the most expensive one if we disregard the word vomit version of the chapter glue. And recap is really cheap. And chapter glue is like the middle ground in cost and complexity. So it depends a bit on which version you personally like best. I like the way chapter glue is structured. And what were you saying, Mano?
So I like to use another plugin for sometime. It's wrap up in a nice bow. Let me find it. It's very nice, really nice work on your story wrapped up in unbelievable bow. So you can highlight your whole chapter, and it's doing the same thing. It's doing some kind of nice. That's one of my older plugin, but it does a pretty good job.
Yeah, we could also try out this one. Then I can add it to the list. I usually use my own plugin that I created for German, but since it's in German, it's not as useful for the broader audience here and not for this story. So it's called Wrapped Up. That's
not easy. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, you send?
The chat.
Okay, let's.
So it's your story wrap in.
Wrap in under this one.
That one.
Good. Then we'll just see what this one will give us. Okay. Yeah, sadly, the navigation on the whole chapter and plugin menu isn't that ideal, but now I just see it kept the, oh my goodness, this.
Don't tell me it's doing a.
This was the old thing. Now I could add.
Is it mine who's doing that?
No, that was one of the chapter glue things that escalated. But now I could send a little report so that maybe they can look into this. But now let's try your story. I'm believing. Oh.
They'll give you a long resume of the story.
Yeah, that's very long.
Well, it's not what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's getting a bit very long.
Yeah, I just did it on my own chapter. I have a chapter of 2,400 and it gave me a resume of 1,001.
Maybe maybe today plugins don't like me. That sometimes happened. Because
go check what's going on.
It's actually longer than this chapter.
It's longer than the chapter?
Yeah. A testament of the
Writing a
resilience and
chapter.
enduring power of homecoming. Wow. I mean, it basically rewrote the whole chapter, it looks. I mean, it will be interesting to compare the both versions.
Definitely.
I just copy it in. Maybe if I let's just delete this. What was it called? Your story wrapping on. I will add the link later. But I mean, theoretically, since the world building boxes are almost unlimited, you could just put the whole first chapter into the chapter glue. But that would come with the downside of it being likely very expensive in the long run.
There is
In that
something
case,
I do there. I do tell, how did I put that in the rewrite? It says, write a resume of chapter, and I put the right title of the chapter, and it's going to fill up the box for you.
oh, that's interesting.
I was telling that to John, says we're doing all those plugins. We just need to do the rewrite and ask the question, write a resume of the chapter.
Yeah. But we have a few versions, and I just think we'll take. Let's get up. Jump up.
Go visit what happened to that plugin. All right, that's for later. Let me test
I think
that
I'll stick with this chapter glue for today's demonstration. And this is like a short analysis of the chapter, which points out the most important changes and what happened, character growth, settings, and so forth. And when I put this here, I was in an older version of the Story Bible. Yeah, no, this is better. When I put this in here, I can reference this by writing, and the AI knows what happened before when we go on to the next chapter. And in order for it to be able to do this, I would now switch this here to automatically so that we can access the second chapter. We can access the information about the first chapter when we write the second chapter this way around. And that is, at this stage, the last thing I do with a finished chapter. I create my little chapter glue, put it in here, and then I would start working on the second chapter. The first part would actually be reading the summary and to make sure that what's happening here still makes sense with the things that happened before. In the beginning, my planting usually still is very close to the outline that Sudowrite gave me, but it sometimes happens that I, like in a little multiverse, just go with a different timeline. And then, of course, the next chapters wouldn't make sense anymore. But in this second chapter, our Nora is determined to restore the house and seeks out a carpenter and finally meets Ellie. And that would still make sense with what actually happened in chapter 1. So we wouldn't have to tweak anything about the contents of this chapter. So we would create a document. It jumped somewhere, but not where it was supposed to jump to. And now we have our chapter 2. And we would go back to what we did for chapter 1, which is first create chapter and genres and chapter specific genre and style by using this plugin, I think, while we are in the document that is linked to chapter 2. While this is generating, are there any questions in chat yet?
They're looking for how you're going to use the chapter glue.
Okay. I hope that we still have some time left. We should be getting to that. Okay. I just named this here. Preparations for chapter 2, so that I can just share this easily with you. And I would copy this information into our outline as a header. Except this part. Then before I rewrite this second chapter, I take a look at all the world building cards to see if we have to hide or show any of them. And since the next chapter is taking place in Ellie's workshop, I would switch this here from never to automatically. But for the other, these can just stay like this for now, since the information is not needed yet. Okay. And now I would grab my chapter rewrite prompt. And go to our chapter 2. Put it into rewrite. And go. Oh, I just noticed the trope, meet cute with professional tension. Slow but initial connection. Yeah, that's really, really nice. So. Into this reverse chapter summary, I would add my prompt, my little header to prompt it to be more scenic and to linger a bit longer on the themes and descriptions. It should be in here, I think. And we'll have this like this. And just read over it to make sure that it's going into the right direction. Yes. Yeah, the goal of the chapter is to establish the beginning of Nora and Eddie's relationship, to set the stage for the renovation journey and deepen Nora's connection to her grandmother's legacy. Oh, music room. Oh, there's a spark of something more than just professional interest. Yeah, it goes into the right direction, so I don't need to edit anything of the summary. And we can go from here. No. Copy it back into our chapter 2. Yes. Mm-hmm. The next step is generating our beats based on the new chapter summary. And then we have half an hour left, hopefully, to dive into writing the next scene. Mhm. And since it's easier for me to work side by side in Scrivener, I will also copy the beats and the summary. I have to make sure which one is which. Ah. And this is the shapes. No, now I mixed it up, but it doesn't really matter. The stamping around is a bit unsettling, but now we would start similar to how we worked with the first chapter. The only major difference is that now we have our previously chapter loom that prompts it to look at what happened before. The scene. Opening. And as always, we go through it and minimize the number of pronouns to make everything more missing this one word to make it clearer.
Sure that the AI is writing the right person and not imagining a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Nora's. Especially in a scene like this where we actually have two people who could be she or her.
I think we need a plugin to get all our beats checked to make sure that all the right names are written properly.
Yeah,
You
I
plug in
just
and
fear that the AI is not clever enough for this. I fear.
we got to
Or
make
it
it.
wouldn't have yeah.
And to
Maybe
check
like
the chapter, the character box itself, and not inventing new one.
yeah. I mean, maybe now with the newest versions, they're capable to do this, but I'd rather err on them being stupid.
No insult intended.
No, oh no, no. My dear AI overlords, I'm not insulting you. Just to make this clear for the future, in case you're watching this video. But now we would just basically do the same as we had yesterday. Start with a higher creativity, with more number of cards. It's roughly like 250 words are like roughly one page, at least by German formatting. I'm not sure if that's different in the US, but for German books, it's always like you have 250 words per page. So I usually aim like one page to write my beginning. And since we had good results with basic yesterday, I would try this out with basic today. Since that's also good to preserve a bit of credits. So and of course, I can't forget to actually put our prompt in here, or we get just something very random. I mean, write is connected to the outline, so it knows what's going to happen in the chapter generally, but without giving it an actual instruction. It may just start the scene somewhere completely different. So this guide always helps us to have a bit more control. So everything's linked. So the writing starts. And now I see where I might have gone wrong, depending on how the others work out. Since this reads as if Nora already knows Ellie and she's not supposed to. The morning, guess the rabbit would. This was for her. A knot of anticipation twisting tightly in her stomach. Beating erratically like a... I'm not sure if I would compare a metronome, like I would call it erratically, but I'm not that firm with music. But I always was of the impression that a metronome is the opposite of erratically. But okay, this is clearly overdoing it a bit. This meeting felt pivotal, point of no return. Now a testament to time's passage. That is something that I actually noticed yesterday, that basic has a few more A-isms in it than excellent. At least that I noticed.
You're still on the basic?
Yeah, this is
switch?
basic.
Yeah.
I switched over to basic. Unless it switched back, because sometimes I think I've set it to summer and the next time I check it is summer, something else. But yeah, it's basic. Just breathe. But there was one that I kind of like, this beginning with her hard rhythmic drum beat against the stillness of the morning air. The weathered barn loomed before her like a guardian of untold stories, its rustic charm softened by creeping vines that reached eagerly towards the slated wooden beams overhead. She could smell the earthiness of the freshly cut wood mingling with hints of pine. The scent felt like a whisper of possibility, coaxing her forward even as apprehension tightened its grip around her chest. This moment was pivotal. She felt it in her bones. There was an unspoken weight to this meeting, pressing down on her shoulders while lifting her spirits just enough to keep her from turning away. With every second that passed, doubts danced around her thoughts like shadows in the corners of the workshop. Was she truly ready for this? Did she have the strength within her to navigate not only the physical restoration of the Callahan house, but also the emotional labyrinth that awaited her? She glanced back at the Victorian, its crumbling facade, a stark reminder. I think stark reminder is also something that comes up quite often with AI. A stark reminder of her past and present intertwined. Memories of laughter, music, and warmth flooded back. The grandmother's gentle hand carved beauty from chaos. Nora could almost see Vivian standing in that very garden, nurturing blooms that whispered secrets to anyone willing to listen. How could she honor that legacy when she felt so lost herself? Taking deep breaths, Nora squared her shoulders and stepped through the doorway. The interior unfolded before her like a vibrant tapestry, woven from dreams and aspirations. Sunlight streamed in through generous windows, illuminating motes of dust caught in mid-flight as if they were fairy souls rejoicing in there. And we later see what they were rejoicing in. So similar to yesterday, now I would go through the through this and add in our little continue. See seamlessly. Check word count. Okay. Like the character count down here, which is okay. So we should describe Nora's sensory experience as Nora takes in the scent of sawdust and the hum of machinery, setting the scene for Nora's first encounter with Ellie. That should still work out. Under normal circumstances, I would read through this a bit more slowly and also take passages from the other generations. But since it's already we don't have that much. Yeah, quarter of the hour. That reading time in foreign language is always like, what am I supposed to call this time?
Yeah, 15 minutes left.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes left, and since I want to have some time for questions, I just go with one other generation, and then it's time for all the questions that may have come up.
You have a good space of going through, and we have a good way of understanding by looking at you going. So,
yeah, thank you. That's reassuring. Let's hope that maybe Ellie will. Oh dang! I just noticed I forgot one important thing. Go back here and change this. So we'll get a few more versions where fairy souls rejoicing their freedom. Hey there. Oh, I like the fluttering in her stomach here. So maybe it wasn't so bad that we got several versions of this scene. But don't make the same mistakes and go and check your bright settings before you hit red.
So much toys. Sometimes it's hard to keep track.
Yeah. I actually have a little checklist that I almost follow. I just forgot to look at the checklist.
I was trying to make a checklist to see all the steps. I can reproduce it. So you have your checklist. Are you able to share it with us?
Right now, I only have the checklist on a piece of paper, but I can make a list later on.
I was
I
doing
also had,
checklist of all the steps because there's a lot of step there, but it's an interesting way of writing, so I want to try it.
yeah, I mean, in general, I have these little steps here. I just put this in here so that I don't forget. I like this version. And here in the writing thing, I also have the
Updated.
yeah. And this jumping around thing it's annoying. There, we want to go here. I had this little step list for my guided write prompts that I always start with my step one with the 6 cards, 250 words, and medium creativity. But the prompt follows like this scheme, roughly. Start the scene with a gripping opening or whatever kind of opening you want. Like for a comedy, you could also have something like a funny opening, or if it's a drama, a heart-wrenching opening. Just experiment and see what you get out of it. And then step 2 is the go to the write settings and set it back to 1 card, 500 words. Even though I noticed I usually have 500 words, since excellent in German usually only gives me 300 words when I ask for 500. But since I noticed that in English, it's actually giving me almost 500 words, you could also just go with 250 words if that's more to your liking. And then, since I want the AI to listen to me, I put it to least. And then I basically repeat this basic prompt with all the, what's it called, beats until I'm almost finished. And this is something I sometimes add when I notice that the AI is rushing the scene. That helps it to slow down a bit. But it can also make it be too slowly. So use it sparingly. And like this is like, go through this again and again and again. And then for the ending, I like to use some variation of this here. Just to give it the POV and tell it that this is the end of the chapter. Give me like 200 to 400 words of my characters doing stuff, which should be changed to whatever you want them to do, and then finish on a cliffhanger. That used to be really reliable. It's not that reliably lately, since sadly AI changes, and I haven't found a prompt that works better yet. But usually it would give you some nice ending point where you can just say, I make a break here, and just cut out the rest. Good. And since we now only have 10 minutes left, I would say we open the floor for questions. And this is like the moment you have to ask everything that came up during the last 3 days for you. If you don't have any questions, we could as well as just go on writing a bit. But I wanted to make sure that we don't have to rush with this being the last session.
Just more or less is the same thing. Yes, please give us the checklist.
Okay, so I'll make sure that I make a little checklist, and I will send this alongside, probably not this year though, but sounds so weird, but I would think this sent this along on the Luma with the recording.
That's good. Any question for the class?
Yes.
To ask, if not, we're going to keep on writing that chapter
Yeah.
2.
Yeah. Freedom.
Let's keep writing.
So I just keep writing until the questions pop up. We still have, almost 10 minutes. So
And
let's
everybody
see.
understood the previously the chapter 2, the chapter glue works. Now they got it. That was one of the main questions. So
Yeah,
I think that
that's
was,
good.
yeah, that was pretty clear.
Good
I
and
have a
relieved.
question, if I
Oh,
may.
yes.
This might sound silly, but if you have, say, 10 beats and you generate, I don't know, like 500 words per beat, don't you end up with like a long chapter? Do you go and then you like edit it and kind of like, shorten it? Or what, I mean, how many words do you end up with? I know that your prompt says write a 4,000 word chapter, but do you end up with more than that? That was just me trying to figure out numbers. Thank you.
Well, yeah, the numbers are always a bit of a variable that's not that easily controlled with AI, but I always shoot for roughly 4,000. And with the first chapter, uh, sometimes I hope this won't jump anymore that much. It worked out quite well that I ended up with roughly 4,000 words, though I have to say that I kit bashed a bit in the beginning. That means I went back and read the variations of the first scene that we had and put a few stuff and put it together. And also from the scene where we had a version of basic and excellent. And in general,
So you edited
let's,
as you went, basically.
yes, basically I edited as I went on writing.
I noticed that you generated 500 words for your first card and then you reduced the number of words to 250 after that. Is that correct?
The other way around, I start with 250 and then I switch to longer.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry.
But you can just do it however it works for you. There are no fixed rules for this.
Right, right.
And and I also vary the length depending on the model, since I'm used to working with excellent, which is a bit stingy with words and usually doesn't give you
Mhm.
500 when you ask for 500. So I think it would also work well if you use basic, which is a bit more reliable in the word counts. If you would just shoot for 200, 500, 200, 250 numbers. Numbers are
Mhm.
Yeah.
bad. And
Got
also something I have to look, where did I put this? I think it's easiest to go back to this. Hmm, it's just this. When I wrote the chapter, I sometimes skipped a few beats. So in the end, I only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beats that I actually gave to guided write. Since sometimes if the AI like finishes writing the beat, it has still words left, it would look at the chapter summary and skip a bit ahead, since it reads both versions. So that I sometimes could like skip 1 or 2 of the generated beats and continue at a later point of the story.
Thank you for your answer.
Did,
Another question? I'm sorry. Yeah, you did answer the question.
yeah,
So another
perfect.
question, another silly question is, following this process, how long does it take you to produce, like on average, how long does it take you to produce a first draft, a complete first draft?
Oh, I usually, since I'm not working full time, it's usually that I write one chapter a day, and that, let's see, like, I think maybe 2 hours per chapter, and it depends how big the book is supposed to be. Like currently I'm working on a epic fantasy since beginning of November, and I'm not halfway through it yet, since this will likely be 180,000 words in the end. But for a romance, it's usually a month, I would guess.
So following this process, it would be fair to say that one could produce a book per month, working like a chapter per day.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. So I'm just talking about the first draft because I know that after that you have to go into editing and all of that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, this
But it
is
should work to
amazing
finish a rough draft in a
in a
month.
month.
Like last for November, there was this challenge. I don't know if you participated in the Sudo No, and that was the challenge to finish a novel with 50,000 words. And by the end, I think I had 70,000 words in this month written with this method. Sadly, the novel wasn't finished, but I still was proud that I had so many words. So, and that's a good length for a romance novel. That maybe even a bit long, depending on your niche. So it's definitely possible to write this way and have a first draft finished in a month.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And don't worry, there are no silly questions, just silly answers. And there's still some time left for questions if anyone wants to speak up. But it sounds like we have a very happy crowd today. So since we have like, I think 1 minute left, I want to say thank you all for joining me over the past 4 days. It's been absolute pleasure sharing my process with you. And I hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as I did and found some inspiration for your own writing project. And I also want to extend a huge thank you to my wonderful co-host, Manon, who has been such a fantastic support throughout this class. And I couldn't have done this without you helping out in the chat and answering questions and making sure that everything could run smoothly during the class. So thank you a lot, Manon.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. It's always fun working with you, Dalia.
Yes, it's always a lot of fun. And as always, if you found this class helpful, I'd be very grateful if you could leave a rating or reviews so that I know where to improve this class, what to keep, what to change in the next iterations. And as we close out this year and look ahead to the next, I want to thank you again for spending this time with me. I wish you a joyful, creative, and inspiring new year filled with exciting new stories and writing adventures. Take care. I hope to see you in future classes. And have a happy new year. Bye bye, everyone.